Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And now that the negotiations have fallen apart, well, I mean, one would argue that this is a slow process and it's going to be a step by step. And JD Vance and his cronies have just proved number one, that they're not at all serious about the negotiation, and number two, that he called a 15-hour discussion a 21-hour discussion. I mean, when you're going to lie even about a small thing such as time, one wonders what else it is that you've been lying about. And then, number three, you've got the fact that he said only a 3.5 minutes worth of a statement, and that even to his own American media, where he says that, oh, we haven't reached any agreement. And again, the harping of the Americans on the one thing that doesn't even apply, that Iran should not, um, you know, develop any tools to achieve nuclear weaponization, and Iran should not develop nuclear weapons. Number one, Iran never did. How many years have passed? More than 30 years. 30 years in, and Iran never developed its nuclear weapons. It never even developed its nuclear facilities enough to use it for energy purposes, which was originally why it was in, developing the, why it was working on the enrichment of uranium in the first place. So, that really begs the question, what exactly is it that America wants? America wants from Iran something that Iran has already given. So that again makes us question the intentions of America and Israel behind the attack on Iran. So you see, things get clear every single time. They keep on and on yapping about something that doesn't exist. They keep on asking for a promise of something that was already given. So we come to the conclusion that actually none of it is the reason behind the attack on Iran. It's just that America wanted to invade Iran. America, at the behest of the British, wanted to steal the uranium resources. And America basically America basically wants to take over the Strait of Hormuz. None of which is possible at the moment where we stand. Which comes now to my next problem, and that is America announcing a naval blockade immediately after this first round, because any sane person would know that this is diplomacy. And in diplomatic negotiations, you don't just go have a 15-hour talk and then say, oh, we haven't reached an agreement. No, this is not how a negotiation is done. This is not how diplomatic negotiations work, and everybody knows that. So the fact that, as I said, that America immediately then announces, especially President Trump, you can say, announces a naval blockade on Iran, that in itself proves very interesting, because it begs the question again, what is it exactly that they want? It means they really do not want the negotiations, which is again something I've discussed in my previous episode in great detail, at least as much detail as I could. Now, let's come to the next problem here, because my problem is that, as I said, if we look at the whole nuclear facilities, so my problem is that, so America is basically saying that it does not want Iran to even develop a cheap, clean energy source. Is that it? Or is it because America, again, I'll reiterate this, that if any country needs to be sanctioned and stripped of its ability to develop nuclear weapons or energy, it would be the US, first and foremost, because it actually has used its nuclear weapons against Japan. And the whole world saw what happened. And yet, America was never stripped of its nuclear facilities. It was never stripped of its nuclear weapons. It was never sanctioned. And the second country that needs to be sanctioned is obviously Israel. And another country that needs to be sanctioned is the UK. And I think all the European countries that have nuclear facilities first need to strip themselves of their nuclear facilities before they expect other countries to, because you cannot set up such a condition that, oh, only we can have nuclear power and nobody else can. No, that's not how it works. If you can have it, anybody else can. You're not the rulers of the world, which is again the essential problem here, where the West tends to think that they rule the world. So, this whole condition that is set up by the US is a complete farce just by this logic alone, right? Now, coming back now to the negotiation fallout and everything, Pakistan, the role of Pakistan. Okay, let's even forget the role of Pakistan. Let's forget the importance of Pakistan. Let's just put all of that aside. Whatever made India think that it was a viable party in any dealings between the Muslim Ummah? Like, seriously, no, I for the life of me need an explanation for this logic. Because this is essentially, even if, let's just oversimplify this, okay? This is essentially a fight between the Abrahamic nations, right? The Jews, the Muslims, the Christians, right? This is a fight between the Abrahamic nations. So only a Muslim nation can get involved here in any case. A Christian nation, a Muslim nation, and a Jewish nation. Only they can get involved in this whole negotiation, this whole negotiation front, you can say. Why does India feel the need to become this Pradhan Mantri, to become the Prime Minister, to become Uncle Sam here? Why does it have to poke its nose in here? How is it that India's jealousy over Pakistan has blinded it so much that it doesn't even know its place? It has no place in this conflict. Secularly and religiously, India doesn't have a place here. If anything, India allied itself with the Zionists, identifying itself with the Nazis and the Zionists, and even firsthand committed genocide of Muslims and still continues to do so in its occupied lands from Gujarat to Assam and Bihar and the Kashmir. In fact, it endorsed Muslim genocide. So it cannot be a mediator, a facilitator, or even a messenger. If anything, it's the enemy. On the secular front, again, India never spoke out against the attack on Iran. It never spoke out against the sanctions against Iran. Yes, fine, it may try to make up BRICS and everything, but they haven't yet actually reached a point where they can make it viable. And it never even spoke against the destruction of the infrastructure of Iran. Forget about the killing of the 165 to 185 people, out of which at least 165 were little girls, children in a school. It's also worth noting that India just wants attention so bad that it's actually looking for ways to stop the negotiations for peace just to make Pakistan look bad. I mean, seriously, you wanting to make Pakistan look bad is high on your priority list. Your inferiority complex and your jealousy and your ego is so much more important than attaining peace. Let's just let that sink in for 2 seconds, okay? In fact, just let that sink in. Because the US, as we said, is not serious to negotiate, right? And everything about India screams zero knowledge of the actual conflict, zero input because of that, and then absolutely no idea of the essence of this conflict. So, again, the fact that India just wants to butt in, despite the fact that it has no concern whatsoever in this conflict, it has no say in this conflict, but it just wants to butt in, that in itself tells you that India has absolutely no clue about what exactly is going on. In no way, no world, and no time is India even remotely a part of this conflict. And third wheeling in full ignorance isn't wise. Yes, I understand people will talk about how the reason why India wants to be a part of it is because all these groups that are a part of this negotiation are basically groups that are going to most probably benefit from the redevelopment of Iran. But first of all, has anybody stopped to think that Iran may not want help from any one of them for rebuilding? Because Iran built itself without any help. Through all these decades of sanctions, Iran developed itself into the powerful giant that it is today. If you remember one of my previous podcasts, I talked about how countries that have lived in sanctions are actually much more strong. They are much more self reliant. They're much more stable, and they're very resilient compared to countries like ours that depend excessively on each other for almost anything, from trade to any other thing. Our economy is heavily dependent on other countries. But countries like China that built itself, Russia that made itself, Iran that developed itself, these countries, and North Korea, these countries, because they are completely isolated, they have learned how to live without depending on others, which means that even if there's an apocalypse, these countries will survive because for them every day is an apocalypse. So, as you can see, it's the same way as how I've explained how countries like ours do not get recession, whereas your so called developed countries collapse under recession because they deal in virtual money, we deal in real physical money. Where there is virtual money and where money is under full control, it's easy to collapse under recession. Similarly, that's how it was so easy for those countries to collapse in COVID, whereas Imran Khan utilized the fact that we weren't working at the same level as those countries. That became our advantage during COVID, which enabled him to create smart lockdown, a model which even Australia literally asked him about, and wondered how is it that they could work it out within their country as well, because Australia, Canada, America, Europe, they were in complete collapse, whereas Pakistan was actually thriving through COVID. So taking advantage of what it is that would otherwise make you a third world country is actually something that makes you now more powerful, you can say, than a developed country. And so this is exactly how and why countries that have lived for decades under sanctions prove to be much more formidable. They will not collapse, and they can rebuild without any help. And Iran has already strategized its rebuilding by taking payment from ships that pass through the Strait of Hormuz, which is absolutely viable, and it is perfectly legal and is acceptable because they own that part of the strait. So they have the right to charge people who are using that path. And they are charging them so that they can use that money to rebuild because they are thinking about the future. Even now, as they sit on the table to negotiate, they are thinking about the future, whereas America is displaying its ignorance for all the world to see. It's displaying its short-sightedness, its lack of qualification. Okay, it's proving to the world that it has blundered in and it's trying to blunder out. It is bluffing through and through, and it's not going to fly. And that is much the same with India. India is bluffing, it's blundering, and it's acting like a blithering idiot. Because at this point, as I said, India doesn't even have a place in this conflict. Yes, again, as I said, coming to that, India thinks it might be a part of the development and all. But again, what even makes you think that Iran would choose all these countries that are trying to mediate, facilitate, and negotiate? Why would they need these countries to help them? There is no way here that tells us that it will require the help of any of these countries, except for the fact that it requires America to pay damages, which, by all rights, America owes Iran damages. Because America attacked Iran without any rhyme or reason. It just upped and attacked Iran just because Israel had an itch which it still can't scratch. And while we're at it, where's Netanyahu? Is he dead or alive? Nobody knows. He probably is still lying somewhere in Germany in critical condition. He's probably in a coma for all we know. And I'm telling you, the key to ending this war completely is finding out his status. When you find out exactly where he is, this war will automatically end. And that is why they don't want you to know where he is and if he's alive or not. And that is why America is buying time, actually, through these non-serious attempts at negotiations. America is playing tag with Israel. But I seriously hope and wish that India, instead of trying to become a third wheel and a bone in the kebab, India needs to just back off, because morally, ethically, socially, religiously, professionally, it just has no place in this whole conflict. It has no place, especially in the negotiation, because for once the Muslim Ummah is pretending at least to do its job. Let it do its job. This was a job for the Muslim countries. Whenever a Muslim country is attacked, it becomes the duty of all the Muslim countries all over the world to defend it, which is jihad, and to mediate a treaty, to mediate a peace treaty, a truce. And so they failed miserably with Palestine. They kind of failed miserably with Iran too. So if they're finally woken up and are pretending to do their job of mediating, let them do it. But India is not an Abrahamic country. It's not part of the Abrahamic conflict on a religious scale, and on a secular level as well. It has nothing to do with this. Nothing at all. This is essentially between the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews, and India has no part to play here on any level, in any time frame, on any parallel world. India has no place here, okay? And as I said, it's not set in stone that these are the countries that are going to benefit from any development that occurs in Iran. Because first and foremost, we don't even know how far this deal will go. And if America, because America so far has never kept its end of the deal, it never did, and Israel also. And they haven't yet stopped the attack on Lebanon. And Iran has said it, that if the attacks on Lebanon do not stop, this deal will go no further. America itself has proved useless, because when you have the Americans, you can see the status of the Americans and the Iranians, okay? You have highly qualified, veteran, experienced, seasoned diplomats from Iran. And then you have these dropouts, these high school, college dropouts, these inexperienced people who have no clue, who have no training, no qualification. The American Prime Minister is a duffer, and that is, I'm being very nice when I'm calling him a duffer, because the truth is, far from a duffer, he's actually completely useless, because he has no diplomatic training, he has no qualifications, he has no experience, he doesn't even know how to do a negotiation. Okay, and then you've got Kushner and Witkoff, both who are confirmed Zionists. They're part of the Jewish lobby. They're the ones who instigated this war in the first place. They're the ones who sabotaged all the negotiations that went through in between and before. What the hell makes you think that they would want a negotiation to go through? So the intentions of America are clear just by the fact that these three people were sent. And it also again shows the status of America, where America does not have anything to offer, and it doesn't have anything to its name, compared to the Iranians, who have 98% education rate in Iran compared to America, which is less than 60% really. And Then you have, again, highly qualified diplomats in Iran. And in America, you've got these, God knows what they are, seriously, because they're anything but qualified or seasoned. They're like amateurs. So yeah, it's literally, you know, it's a huge difference. You can't even compare the two. That just proves my point. We have yet a long way to go. These negotiations, I'm sorry to say, but even if they do manage to somehow reach some sort of a truce, but Israel and America will keep on waging wars because they are warmongers. Europe, America, Israel, they literally, especially Europe and America, they literally earn through wars. They earn through genocide. They earn through arms dealing, ammunition, okay? They earn through destroying infrastructures of countries and then sending companies there with huge tenders to get the job of development. Remember, I said that before, and see, it's happening here in Iran. They're destroying the infrastructure of Iran because now they're hoping that they will get business in Iran. This is what they do. Remember, I've talked about this as well many times before. And every time there is a war, or every time they're preparing for a war, I always say, remember, there are two ways in which the West can earn: ammunition and real estate, redevelopment projects. And that is exactly what they're trying to do in Kashmir, occupied Kashmir in India. That's exactly what they're trying to do in Palestine. That's exactly what they will now want to do in Iran. That is exactly what they tried to do in the northern areas of Pakistan when they tried to wreak havoc with their so-called terrorism. They have been doing this time and again. They have done this in different parts of Africa, where they worked with the French government to, again, create terrorist outfits and then use that to their advantage to bomb civilian areas and then once again swoop in for development projects. They're doing this again and again and again. And we'll be the biggest fools if we still don't understand what it is that these people are after. They want to steal resources. They want to take over development, and they want to sell ammunition. These are warmongering countries. This is the only way they can earn, apart from drug trafficking. That is for their intelligence outfits. That's to finance their intelligence outfits. But for their own gain and advantage, these three are the main sources of finance as warmongering countries. And India, basically, again, there's only two reasons that India will want to have a part in it. Well, one reason is always their jealousy, their blind jealousy of Pakistan. And the second is, again, them wanting to have a piece of that pie where they can earn some money as warmongers, the hyenas. They are the hyenas. They want to be the hyenas of the pack. Well, this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.